My main goal basically is just to be able to share my music and to be able to make a living doing my music.
Missouri musicians, then and now.
You said that you're trying to get used to this weather because you're from where again?
I am from Hawaii, so I am definitely not used to all this cold. I only moved here about a year and a half ago, and I spent my whole life in Hawaii before that. So I am definitely not used to this cold. We pretty much have 85-degree weather year round. Our winter is a rainy season, and that's about it.
What brings somebody to Missouri from Hawaii?
Kind of a combination of a lot of things. My family actually owned a pet store out in Hawaii that I worked in for about 10 years, managing it with my family. And it was very consuming. I loved it, but that was pretty much my whole life. And I'd kind of joked around about the idea of moving somewhere out in the country where life is a little bit, more laid back and everything, where I didn't have to be working, 24/7, and where I could actually start pursuing my music as a career. And over the course of a couple of years, it just kind of became something I really wanted to do. And my family was actually on board being, with looking at moving too. And it's my parents and my sister. And we actually decided we wanted to go in together and buy a ranch somewhere out, in the country. So we found a 40-acre ranch, and the four of us went in together, bought it, and a house on the property, of course. And I have my own studio for my music and started pursuing that since moving here. And just kind of a lot of reasons. I always will love Hawaii, but things are changing a little bit there too now. The more country areas are becoming more populated, and, just kind of wanted a little bit something different.
I bet if you asked like 100 people in our local area whether they would want to be in Missouri or Hawaii, they would say Hawaii.
Yeah, a lot of people think I'm crazy for moving out here, but so far I really love it, and I've definitely got some good opportunities with my music to start really pursuing that, and I've been doing that full time since moving here, so I'm pretty happy so far.
That's awesome. Judging by like your social media numbers and stuff, I saw you had multiple hundreds of likes and follows and stuff. I would have never guessed that you're new to the area.
Yeah, I think I just made it up to about 700 followers on Facebook. I really only started building that up from what I had, maybe a couple hundred followers since moving out here. And I really only started gigging a lot, probably maybe July of this past year. I kind of started out a little bit in towards the end of 2021, doing a little bit. I was still kind of in the process of, getting everything settled here, getting into the swing of everything. We have a lot of animals as well, so I'm getting stuff situated at the house, building fences for our goats and our dogs and everything else. So I didn't have a whole lot of time to really dive into looking at venues to play at until towards the middle of this year. And that's when things really started to take off, when I started to really reach out to a lot of different people and try to get in places to perform.
You bring up a lot of questions that I have. It's hard to figure out which one I want to ask. It blows my mind what people are capable of when they shift their focus to like one thing specifically.
Hmm.
I
Yeah, that's for
I've
sure.
noticed that I try to do that sometimes, and when I do, like, it's very successful.
Yeah, it makes a big difference when you actually make a decision to go for something and put everything into it.
So you were talking about reaching out and finding places to play at and stuff.
Hmm.
Do you primarily do all of that on your own?
I do. It's just me. So I spend time, I have a studio at the house where I get my practicing done. I also spend a lot of time up there contacting places to look at performing. So being new to the area, it can be kind of challenging because I don't know a lot of the businesses and everything, different bars, venues, festivals that go on around here. It was a lot of research trying to find all the different places nearby within driving distance. And basically, I just send out lots of messages, phone calls, constantly following up with people and everything. And, once I get a few things booked, once I got a few things booked, it started taking off more. Once you play one or two shows, then, people want to book you out for multiple dates, and kind of starts adding up once you get in there and start playing a bit.
Sure. Do you have any advice for musicians that are looking to start booking, or maybe they're new to all this, and has there been anything that you've learned that you can pass on to somebody else?
Main thing is just being persistent, having confidence in yourself, for sure, not coming off as arrogant, but also making sure you actually tell people what you can do. Don't be afraid to tell them of your capabilities and everything. And lots of videos and examples of your performances and everything are always good. Sending in a live performance or two to the places that you're looking to play at. But honestly, just being persistent in everything too. So some of these places, the owners and managers and everything are very busy. So they don't always remember to message you back or to call you back if you send them one message, and you just, are hoping for a few months that maybe they'll message you back. You have to remember, follow up with places and everything, make notes of when you contact people so you can keep on it and everything. So that's the main things I think I've learned so far.
That's really great advice. I've talked to a lot of people doing this that have said you almost have to be a pest.
Yeah, I would say so. You don't want to drive people too crazy, but at the same time, you definitely want to be persistent and everything. And, a lot of the venues, the people doing the booking and everything, they don't mind you following up a few times and everything if they're interested. And if they're not, then they're just going to tell you they're not interested, and then you just move on. So that's kind of how it is. And the one other thing I would probably say for advice would be, don't be afraid to contact places that seem out of your reach, because that's one thing that I found at the beginning, especially being a little bit nervous to contact bigger venues or bigger festivals. And sometimes, you underestimate yourself, and these people actually see your work and they want you in these bigger places that you almost didn't contact. So, there's no harm in putting yourself out there and contacting bigger places as well, even if you feel like you're not ready, and kind of pushing yourself out of your comfort zone makes a big difference.
That could be applied to many things, definitely. People got to keep growing and getting out of their comfort zone for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey everybody, it's Jordan. I just wanted to invite you to check us out on Facebook. Like, follow, drop me a message, let me know if there's someone you'd like to come on the show. Tell me what your favorite podcast episode was. Give me some feedback, tips, tricks, positive stuff, negative stuff. If you have a question you'd like me to ask our guest, let me know on Facebook. I just want to hear from you, so let's talk. I hope to talk to you soon. So how would you compare your experience in the music scene to what you experienced in Hawaii?
Honestly, I didn't start really performing at all until I moved here. So, as far as performing in Hawaii, I had just started really deciding that I was gonna try to do this as a career when COVID hit and everything was shut down in Hawaii. It was much more strict than it was here. Restaurants were all shut down. Only essential businesses could be open. So there wasn't really opportunities for me to go into places and perform, in bars and establishments and stuff like that. You couldn't even gather in numbers more than, I think, 10. So the only thing that I had done actually in Hawaii before moving here was a nursing home actually hired me to do Zoom performances. So
Oh, wow.
I was doing monthly performances for this nursing home, just doing Zoom videos, talking to the people there, talking to the residents, and playing some songs. And that was my first real experience actually performing, was through a video call. And then I moved here, and once I moved here, that was my first in-person live performance.
Tell me more about that. Like, take me through your feelings and thought process at your first live gig like that.
I was pretty terrified. I had only really started even letting anybody know that I was interested in doing music at all a few years ago. I bought my first guitar about 3.5 years ago, and that's when I started learning how to play. I didn't know how to play a guitar, didn't have any idea. I kind of taught myself from videos and stuff. So it was very nerve wracking because only, you know, a couple of years ago, nobody even knew that I sang at all or was even interested in doing this. So definitely a lot of anxiety going into the first gig I played. It was a 2-hour show at a youth center that they were doing a festival there. So it was pretty nerve wracking, but everybody was seemed to be, responding well to my performance, and I had a lot of fun. I played a couple hours and did all some of my original songs and some covers, and it was actually really fun once I started playing. Just before all the anticipation and anxiety with that, definitely it was pretty scary at the beginning.
It's crazy like how quickly all this has happened, you know. I've been playing the guitar since I'm old. I think I was teaching myself in 2004, and I didn't start playing gigs for a few years after that. So, you know, you go from no guitar to teaching yourself guitar to gigging and booking and performing and doing everything that you're doing in such a short amount of time. It's really impressive.
Well, thank you.
I think a lot of people can take note of that and stop being chicken, you know?
I was definitely very nervous to even talk to anybody about the possibility of doing this as a career. I didn't have a whole lot of confidence in myself. I always loved to sing, and I always kind of wrote songs, but never shared them with anybody. And then I think it was about 4 years ago, I decided to tell my sister that I wrote a song, and it was actually a Christmas song. That was the first song anybody had heard that I'd written. And she was like, okay, that's really good. We need to post that on social media. And I was like, I don't know. I'm pretty nervous about it. And it was just me singing it a cappella. I didn't, have any instruments, anything like that. And so she posted it, and I had a lot of really good feedback about it. And it was like, oh, people actually think I'm decent. And it gave me a little bit of a confidence boost to start posting some videos and stuff, mostly just me singing along to some tracks with covers and singing some of my original songs, just vocals on it. And then when I really decided, I want to do this, I was like, okay, I need to learn how to play an instrument. So I literally just ordered a guitar, and I was like, I'm going to teach myself how to do this.
That is so cool. I noticed on social media that you had a gig at an assisted living facility. We talked about that a minute ago.
Mhm.
That is something that I would have never considered doing as a musician. Can you tell me what gave you that idea to do that and how it helped your career?
Yeah, absolutely. So initially, actually, when I started looking at doing music for a career, that was one of my main focuses, was wanting to go into nursing homes and assisted living facilities and playing some music for them. Because I know with my grandparents, it made a huge difference for them. They loved, I had just started playing some videos and everything for them of the songs that I had sung before they passed. And I know that made a big difference for them. They loved listening to the music, especially songs from their generation. You could see it kind of bringing back memories and everything. And I just kind of felt a passion for that, for going out and bringing music to them that could kind of bring back some memories, especially like my grandpa had Alzheimer's, and I think some of the older songs that he listened to in his younger years, it really helped bring back some of those memories. And I don't know, just making people happy makes a big difference to me. I felt like it was something that was worthwhile. So when I initially started looking at doing music, that was one of my main focuses, was contacting different nursing homes and assisted living facilities to play at. And I know here especially, it seems like a lot of the places have very limited budgets, so it can be difficult, when you obviously want to do things that are helpful to people. At the same time, it also has to work out for you business wise, when it's what you're doing for a living. So it's kind of hit or miss on some of the places. Some of them can afford to pay, some can't. But the one that I played for, they've hired me to play a couple times now. I did their Thanksgiving show and their Christmas show out there, and I think it really seems to brighten up their day. And I really feel like it's something that's worthwhile. So it makes me happy to do that. But since moving here, I've definitely expanded what I'm looking at doing. I've been doing a lot more of the restaurants, bars, festivals, and everything as well. So just kind of a variety, mixing it up and getting as much gigs as you can in all different kind of venues and settings makes a difference too.
I thought that was so cool because obviously you're doing it for the right reasons and your heart's in the right place. But a lot of people look at gigs and they prioritize what pays the most, or what's the
Hmm.
best venue or something. And also, if you think about the residents, I'm sure little to none of them have the ability to go on social media or the internet. So it's like
Hmm.
your audience is a very isolated audience, and that's not necessarily a bad thing if you're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. And going to those places, to me, I know it takes, different people have different ideas of what they want to do with their music. To me, I like going to the places that I perform at regularly, the bars and the restaurants and all that too. But I find it very rewarding going to these kinds of places too, and talking to the residents and making some new friends while I'm there and everything too. And they always seem to look forward to me coming back to play some more music for them. So I really enjoy it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Missouri Musicians Then and Now podcast. Like us on Facebook and check out our YouTube channel where you can find clips and full length previous episodes. So let's talk about your genres that you play and some gear that you use.
Yeah, so as far as the genres I play, I'd say I do mostly country, and that seems to be what people enjoy, especially here. Although not just here, I've played out in California. They were so excited to have a country artist coming out and performing out there at a couple venues that I played back in October. But I do mostly country. I write a lot of original songs. I love writing music. My originals are typically more towards country as well. I've written a few patriotic songs that are, in support of our soldiers and everything as well, and some Christmas music. But I also play some Hawaiian music. So I've done a few of little luau events here and everything with my Hawaiian songs. And I also do Christian music. So I've written a few Christian songs. I actually had the opportunity to perform in Burlington, Iowa at Hallelujah auditions. That was a national singing competition. I made the top 100 of that
Oh, wow.
and got to go perform there in May with one of my original Christian songs. So that was a pretty awesome experience. But yeah, that's my main genres I perform is in country, and then I usually throw a song or two that are from Hawaii into my shows, and people seem to enjoy that.
I did catch a ukulele in one of your pictures.
Yes, I play guitar, ukulele, and then I also have a guitalele, which is a cross between a guitar and a ukulele. So it's 6 strings, but it's in between sizes, more towards the size of a ukulele.
That's
So it has
awesome.
kind of a sound that's kind of in between a guitar and a ukulele.
Well, that's definitely one way to differentiate yourself and separate yourself from the gazillions of artists in Missouri trying to play music for people.
Yep, I guess it does. I have some of my Hawaiian songs I play on the ukulele, and then I throw in some ukulele versions of other genres too, which I think people like because it's just a little bit different, but still the songs that they know and love.
So we were talking about booking earlier, and an interesting topic has come up with me and someone else that I was talking to recently. We were talking about how you value your art or your music or your performance. And being a solo acoustic artist, I would definitely be interested to get your opinion on this, because what it is we were discussing people and their rates. And there's some people who do this to put food on the table, and there's other people who do it for fun. So the people
Yeah.
that do it for fun may be a little bit more affordable, or let's say they're just starting out. They're going to want to get their foot in the door, so they're not going to overcharge people, and obviously the venues are going to, try to get a good deal. So can you tell me about how you value your art and music and performance? And yeah, I'd like to hear about that.
So I think that's going to be something that, of course, every artist has to decide for themselves what kind of rates they want to go for. I think it's definitely important not to go too low, because you want to value your music obviously for what you're worth. I usually have kind of a ballpark rate that I go for, but I don't always stick to exactly that too, depending on the venue. It also, to me, depends also on how far I have to go and everything for my performance. And sometimes that's a matter of just, telling the venue I need to have a longer set. So if I have a set hourly rate, telling them, well, I need to play for at least 3 hours to make it worth my while for the drive. And, the venues understand that and everything too when you're traveling. But I definitely think it's important to have a rate that's kind of your go-to, and also not undercutting yourself for what you're worth. And there's definitely been gigs that I've turned down that are going to be, low ball offers that, maybe the venue can't afford anything more than that, and that's okay too. But definitely having your standards is important.
That's good stuff. It really got me thinking, because I was a gigging musician for like 10 years. So I've kind of been on the scene, and I'm familiar with a lot of it. But this is just something new that I've been talking with some people about. So I wanted to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, it's every individual artist needs to decide for themselves. But I'm fairly new to the area as well, and part of it was, just feeling things out a little bit, trying to figure it out. I did a lot of research, what going rate is for solo artists and everything in the area. And of course, you can talk to your fellow musicians and everything as well. Like you said, not going for exact dollar amounts, but, getting some input from other musicians in the area can be helpful too, kind of being on the same page as far as what's customary in the area you're performing in.
Have you gotten to know some other musicians? Like, have you considered joining a band or starting a band or expanding in any way?
I have gotten to know some of the musicians around here. I am primarily focusing on my solo career. As far as joining another band, I've played around with the idea a couple times. I'm not completely opposed to playing with another band, but for me, it would be probably on the side. I want to still focus on my solo career. As far as getting to know the other musicians and everything, I did have an opportunity to play at local festival out in Jonesboro, Arkansas, this past year, and that was a really good experience for me. They had, I think, like 70 plus artists performing at that festival, so I got to meet a lot of the local artists and from surrounding states and everything out there. So definitely made a few friends, and that can be helpful too, getting advice from the other musicians in the area.
Awesome. The Missouri Musicians Then and Now podcast is proud to be on Patreon. Patreon is a membership platform that provides business tools for content creators to run a subscription service. It helps creators and artists earn a monthly income by providing rewards and perks to their subscribers. It allows artists to receive funding directly from their fans or patrons on a recurring basis or per work of art. Select your membership tier and gain access to special perks. Patrons subscribe to the Toes in the Water membership tier will have access to behind-the-scenes pics, bloopers/outtakes, pictures of handwritten interview prep, and will also receive a shout-out sometime during the podcast. Patrons subscribe to the Waist Deep membership tier have access to all previous perks. In addition, they'll have access to commercial-free, unedited episodes of the podcast, 3-day early access to new podcast episodes, and the ability to participate in polls that help shape the direction and future of the podcast and its content. An opportunity to make your voice heard. Patrons subscribe to the Diving In membership tier have access to all previous perks, as well as handwritten thank you notes to be mailed to you, bonus videos which may include any of the following: pre-show and post-show conversation with guests, vlogs, and any other video ideas I come up with. Patrons will also have access to a monthly Ask Me Anything Q&A session to either be live streamed or hosted through other forms of social media. With your support, I can upgrade my equipment, presentation, produce video versions of the podcast, and potentially get someone to assist me so I can introduce you to as many of Missouri's artists as I can, as often as I can. For patrons, I'm excited to peel back the curtain and give you a behind-the-scenes look at the process of making a podcast. Pics, videos, show notes, unreleased clips, early access, and more will be available to you. I genuinely appreciate your contributions to this project. I put a lot of time and love into it. Thanks for checking out my Patreon. I'm talking with Brandy Lee. Brandy, I want to hear about your best gigs and your worst gigs.
Well, I am happy to say I wouldn't have anything that I would consider my worst gig, really. I've had pretty good experiences so far. Best gigs, there's been a lot that have been really fun. I would say my trip out to California was one of my best experiences for performing. I played 2 different venues out there, and I went out for about a week in October, and the crowd was just so enthusiastic. One of the venues I had played, apparently the customers there, it was a bar, the customers had been asking for a country artist, and when I came, the place was packed. Everybody was so excited. I had people asking for more songs when I was done performing, so that was pretty awesome for me. And everyone was just very enthusiastic. Everyone was super nice and having such a great time. To me, that was definitely a highlight for me, for my performances, for sure. And that one was in a bar in Apple Valley, California. And then I also played Big Bear, I think the next day, out in California as well. And that one, same thing. Everybody was very enthusiastic. Everyone was so nice, and it was just a really great experience.
Yeah, as an artist, you never forget those gigs when the crowd is just totally into it. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I don't think I've really had a worst gig. There's definitely some that are more fun than others. I've had a gig or 2 that I've played out in, 100-degree heat outside at festivals and stuff, where the coordinator happens to forget to bring me a tent, and then I end up with crazy sunburn, that kind of situation, but nothing too bad to complain about.
Now, I don't know if you've heard, but I got a segment on the podcast called Musical Mishaps. Now, surely in all these gigs that you've played, something has gone very wrong. You got to have more than just a sunburn. Come on.
I honestly don't.
What?
I haven't really had much mishaps.
You did?
Have
you broken a string?
Nope.
What?
Nope. Maybe I'm lucky. Hopefully saying this won't make me end up having something horrible go wrong in my next gig. But
don't
so
tell
far,
me if it
I
does.
honestly haven't really had any mishaps. I had one situation where my PA system wasn't working on me. It just was not working at all. It made this horrible kind of buzzing sound, and no sound was coming out, but it all kind of worked out. I unplugged everything, replugged everything, and it went back on for my show. It unfortunately broke on me a couple weeks later.
Oof.
But I was, it wasn't in the middle of a show and was able to get a new one for my next show. So that's pretty much like the worst I've experienced. I haven't really had much mishaps so far,
Oh.
which I'm happy to say.
Oh, don't get me wrong. Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm just like, there's got to be something.
My only other real situations, which weren't while I was actually performing, was being new to the area. My GPS tries to sabotage me. So I always leave like super early in advance, especially if I'm going somewhere far, somewhere that I'm not familiar with. But I've had a couple times where my GPS literally takes me to the wrong side of the river.
Oh
So
no.
I had one gig that I was going to perform at, and it was, I think, only like an hour away from my house. I left like 2 hours or 2.5 hours early. I made it on the dot for when I was supposed to perform, and I was like running out of my car. Luckily, they had their own PA system, so I just plugged in and
Oh,
started.
that's good.
But my GPS took me what was supposed to be the quickest route, and it dead ended into the river, and then the road continued on the other side of the river. It wanted me to drive across the river. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I had to drive back, I think, like half an hour or 45 minutes to get back to the highway, where I had to go the other direction to go around the river to get to the venue. And that was pretty nerve-wracking. I barely made it on time, and it's done that a couple times to me, but I've been trying to be more careful at like really looking at the routes or calling the venue ahead of time and asking them which way I should be going so that doesn't happen. But yeah, that was probably my other thing. I would say my GPS does try to sabotage me every now and then.
I think there's a common denominator in the musical mishaps, and usually the artist is slightly intoxicated.
I've definitely witnessed that a time or two. I myself don't drink, so I don't have that issue, and I'm very careful about planning everything. I make sure like I check all my stuff like a million times before I go, make sure I have everything, make sure everything's working, and make sure I have backup batteries, backup everything basically, before I go to my gigs. I get very nervous about things going wrong, so I try to prepare a really lot in advance for that.
That's awesome. This it's a first. It's a first for the podcast. There's just no musical mishaps, and I hope everyone's paying attention. So stay clear-headed and sober, and you won't have any mishaps.
Maybe that's the key.
And if you do, then you can do your own troubleshooting like Brandy does. Well, I tell you what, I've joined some music groups on Facebook, and you are killing it on Facebook. Like I just every time I was scrolling, like I don't actively scroll to find people to talk to, which I should, but you are all over the place on there. So you're very busy and active, and I was like, I really got to talk to this person.
Yeah, I definitely do try to keep a presence on Facebook. That's definitely my most followed page on there. I post some stuff to YouTube too, but Facebook, I try to keep that really updated. I'm always posting my upcoming schedules and my upcoming events and everything. So definitely trying to get my name out there and keeping my followers informed on what I'm doing and getting them involved in, requests, and if they have places that they want me to play, giving me their suggestions on venues and everything so I can come to their area as well.
So you're not stuck chasing your tail trying to get monetized on YouTube. You're primarily a Facebook gal.
I am, yeah. So I post my videos and everything to YouTube, but I honestly don't have a huge following on there. Facebook definitely is where I get most of my followers, and most of the input from my followers and everything is off there.
Interesting. What are your goals for the future in your musical career?
My main goal basically is just to be able to share my music and to be able to make a living doing my music. So I know a lot of people, they're just always trying to get famous, trying to get to the big time, all that. And of course, that's awesome. And nobody's going to be upset about that happening. But at the same time, I think I'm always going to be content. If I can make a living doing what I love, I'm going to be pretty happy. So, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I need to, of course, add in some more gigs throughout the year, but I've, got quite a few bookings already lined up for 2023. And if I'm able to make a living doing what I love, playing local venues and everything, I'll be happy doing that.
So how does somebody get to that point where it's like make or break? Because I've been in that position before where it's like I can almost quit my job, but there's such a
Yeah.
high element of risk there. How have you dealt with that?
As far as that goes, lots of praying for one thing.
Yes.
It was very nerve-wracking for sure, especially, for me working in my family's store and everything. That's what I did since I was 14. I did that for 10 years. So, um, it was definitely kind of scary going into something completely new. And I kind of tried to keep in the mindset, I had some savings. I was going to really go for it and try to just do this. But at the same time, I was kind of telling myself also, it's okay if I do have to get a job on the side too. If it doesn't work out where I can't make it as, my full-time job, I can start out by getting a job on the side and still work at building up my gigs and everything and make it to where I can do that full time. But I do understand definitely it's scary to really try and go for it all at once. For me, I think having the time to spend doing it made a big difference though, for being able to do it full time, because I know if I'm doing another job and I'm distracted with another job and don't have the time to be contacting these places constantly, I may not be at the point where I am now. So jumping into it and just saying, I have to make it work and going for it, I think did make a difference for sure for getting to where I'm at now.
Sink or swim.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it's working out so far because it takes a lot of courage to do that kind of thing.
Well, thank you. And I still got a ways to go, but I'm pretty happy so far with my progress. So
Is there some point when you kind of need some help, because it sounds like you do all your booking, you do all your promoting. Obviously, you're the star. Are you going to get to that point where you're like I can't grow or I'm having trouble, like I need somebody to help me?
I don't know. I don't know. I guess I'll have to see if that point comes, then I'll have to figure it out. As of right now, it's definitely time consuming, but I can still handle it. It's definitely something that I need to, sometimes I find I need to manage my time a little bit better, trying to figure out, you know, when I'm practicing my music, when I'm contacting places and all that sort of stuff. Because it can, contacting venues and everything, it can become addicting. You're finding new places to contact and you get sucked into it when you're planning to be actually practicing your music, and then you spend
Mm-hmm.
hours just contacting venues instead. But I think it's just a matter for myself at the point I am now is just managing my time where I, set times where I'm going to contact the venues and times where I'm going to practice and of course have my performances and all that stuff too. But I guess if I get to the point to where I need help, I'll have to figure that out. But as of right now, I can still manage it okay.
So you got to be very disciplined.
I guess so.
So you haven't reached that point where it's felt like a job. You've kind of got that happy medium of like I'm still doing what I love and then you're balancing it properly.
I would say so. I mean, there's always going to be things that you enjoy more or less about a job. So, performing is definitely the highlight for me. I love doing that. Um, as far as contacting places and trying to get in places, I wouldn't say that's my very favorite. Messaging and calling places and everything, but it is rewarding, getting more gigs and lining shows up and everything is still definitely a rewarding part of the job. But yeah, I mean, there's always going to be things that you like more than another when you're working at something, but I still really enjoy doing what I'm doing.
If getting to the performance is the goal, then that's motivating to get through all the other stuff to get to that point.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what's your favorite cover song to play?
Ooh, my favorite cover. I have a lot of favorite covers. I would say I love Dolly Parton. I would say one of my favorites is probably Jolene. That one is one that usually gets the crowd involved. They really seem to like that one and get people singing along and everything to Jolene. But I have a lot of favorite covers, honestly. I like to perform Grandpa by the Judds, um, Mama's Broken Heart by Miranda Lambert. But I could go on and on. I have a lot of favorite covers.
Well, is there anything that you wanted to say to anybody that may be listening? There's people that listen. There's like 8 different countries and 18
Oh, that's
states or
awesome.
something like that. Yeah.
Basically, thank you guys for listening, and I hope you'll follow me on Facebook. You can look me up under Brandy Lee Music, and you can see my videos. And for those of you who are local, you can see all my upcoming shows. I've got a lot coming up for 2023 in Missouri and in Arkansas, so you've got lots of places you can catch me performing. But I appreciate all of you guys listening to my music.
There you go. Brandy Lee, it's been great talking to you.
Great talking to you too.
All right, take care.